Hey everyone, another Steam Fest has come and gone, and it seems like these are just getting bigger and bigger, which is awesome. So much fun to be had. Let's get right down to business. I checked out about 40 demos. These are the 15 that I left really excited about and ready to check out the final versions of when they're released. I've listed these in order of how excited I am for them. Let's do it. Starting off in left field a bit, first off on the list is Poems and Codes. This is a pretty simple game. It's cryptogram puzzles where all of the solutions are snippets of poems. Admittedly, I've never been a big poetry person. I'm one of those people who reads the words and understands them all as standalone statements, but if I read long passages of it, my mind just wanders away and I stop comprehending what I'm actually reading. But I do love a good cryptogram, so I gave this one a shot, and it really is just cryptograms. You pick a theme from the menu, it puts you into a small piece of a poem. You solve the puzzle, it gives you the option to reveal which poem it is, or keep it hidden as you solve additional passages from the same poem. Once you're done, you can read the whole thing, and that's it. On a puzzle level, I enjoyed knowing that I was dealing with a poem about a specific topic. That helped inform some of my decisions in the cryptograms and made them a little more casual and approachable. But then the best thing to come from this game? Something about tackling the poems one short passage at a time and spending the time to lock in on the patterns and work out the individual words actually made me absorb and appreciate some of them. Not all of them, mind you, but by the time I was done with a few and read them from beginning to end, I found myself actually enjoying the flow of words and finding meaning in what they were talking about in a way that I've never really done before, and that's pretty cool. The game helped me appreciate something I've never been able to connect with before. I like that a lot. Up next, getting back to our normal bullshit, we've got Skybreakers, a very fast-paced combat-heavy roguelike game. At first glance, this looks like a Survivors game, and it's not too far off, but I consider it to be a bit different. The game plays out in timed rounds, kill as many enemies as you can in those rounds to level up, then spend the points you earned in between rounds to create your build for the run. Offerings in the upgrade store come in categories like comboing, basic attacks, special attacks, or even stuff like store prices. You don't really unlock any new abilities throughout a run, you just tweak the things you get from the beginning. As you progress further, you can unlock the ability to dump points into more categories, or you can focus on a specific few. As you hit certain thresholds of upgrades for those categories, you unlock some special additional bonuses. The reason this game shines for me is how different the characters are and how much you can play with the things that make them unique. Just to give you a few examples, as I was figuring out how to play with the first character, I noticed that enemies would sometimes charge up attacks, which is represented by a blue ring closing in around them. If you dash into them before it goes away, you go into frenzy mode, where your attacks do more damage and you take less damage. This mechanic is so important that I thought it was kind of the hook of the game. But then I tried the other character available in the demo, and I was surprised to find that she didn't do anything even remotely close to that. There were no blue charge rings at all, no frenzy mode at all. And the second character's power was even more fun to play around with. She gets a little rock buddy that runs around and bashes enemies and occasionally turns his fist into balls of lightning and charges at enemies. And at first I thought this kind of sucked, but as I leveled up more and more, it got incredibly fun. I made it so it would take less damage if I was close to the rock guy. Then I was able to change him so his lightning would charge up faster as I hit him. At this point, it behooved me to stick to him like glue and almost pay more attention to attacking him than the enemies. But then I was also able to modify my attacks to be a bit wider, so as I was attacking the rock guy, I was also putting the hurt on the enemies. And this general progression kept evolving more and more and more over the course of the run, which played out 100% differently than my first run with the frenzy guy. So I'm excited to see how the other characters play and see how the rest of the structure of the game is laid out. Next up, we have Time Survivors, which, as you could probably guess from the name, is a survivors game through and through. So what makes this one stand out in this almost ridiculously crowded genre? Well, theme and the meta progression. The theme is basically historical figures in a survivors game. Abraham Lincoln is one of the characters. That's really stupid, and I like it. But then the main selling point is the meta progression. As you play more, you unlock new powers and characters in this big skill tree-like thing, and each item on the tree has several different stats that can be upgraded using different currencies. On top of that, the game feels good to play. It moves smoothly and has a good speed to it. The early demo powers aren't necessarily things we've never seen before, but boomerangs and ball and chains are fun to use and level up. And there are interesting things happening in the levels. The challenges to get different currencies are varied and interesting. There's at least one boss that shows up in the later parts of the first level. And then it has that normal ramp up where you start to feel invincible, but enemies keep filling more and more of the screen until they seem unbeatable, and you end up in that race that this genre is known for. This one isn't necessarily reinventing the wheel, but it's solid, plays nice, and has a fun theme that doesn't take itself too seriously, while also giving the developers a lot of freedom to play with things that are fun. I will definitely invest some time into unlocking the stuff in the massive skill tree when the game comes out. Keeping things moving, up next we have Apocalypse Party, which is yet another game that feels a bit like a Survivors game. but this one departs from the formula quite a bit. The game does the normal thing where you kill enemies who crap out little pellets that cause you to level up, where you get a choice of 3 random perks to add to your build. But unlike a lot of Survivors games, this one is actually very much about exploring the level and completing objectives. As you hit certain level milestones, large structures will activate, allowing you to engage in a boss fight. I wasn't able to pull this off in my time with the demo, but it seems like the main objective of the level is to beat 3 bosses. And that's kind of the arc. Continue to level up, gaining new perks that have various tags associated with them, like ice or melee or projectile. Focus your perks on a few different tags to get the most out of them. Then search the landscape for weapon crates that get you the best weapons that play to the tags you're focusing on, which is also a different flow than a lot of these games. Finally, the last thing I want to touch on is the characters. There's a lot of variety here, from hero to gladiator to football player to frost mage. It's kind of all over the place in a fun way. I only had a chance to play as 2 of them, but it made a pretty big impact on the weapons I found in the level. With the hero, it was all pistols and assault rifles and sniper rifles. With the gladiator, it was throwable shields, swords, and spears. And I'm endlessly curious to see how the football player works. Kind of similar to Time Survivors, this one doesn't take itself too seriously and lets itself play around and have fun with the genre in a way that I really appreciated, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. Finally, departing from the world of Survivor games and roguelikes, up next we have 3 minutes to 8. So I'm not entirely sure how this game is going to play out, but the premise is fascinating. You start the game at 7:33 p.m. Every time you move from one screen to another, a minute of time passes. At exactly 7:57, you die. You then pick one item you picked up to carry over to your next attempt and restart at 7:33. But then as you play, certain events will happen, seemingly based on what specific minute it is when you enter a screen. And it almost seems like separate timelines are at play. You start the game without a girlfriend, just alone in your apartment, but then the next minute you'll have one and she'll just be in your apartment like nothing happened. Follow her into the next room, causing a minute to pass, and you'll be greeted with a weird detective looking guy in your room your girlfriend just entered and she's nowhere to be seen. So what exactly is the point of this game? I'm not really sure. I think it's just to figure out what's going on, figure out how to escape the time loop, figure out why the time loop is even happening, figure out what the hell the explosion is at 7:45 every loop. And I don't know, I'm definitely interested. Will it pan out? Will all of these things play out in a satisfying way? I have absolutely no idea. It seems like it's going to be a pretty clever game. I love timeline and time loop stuff. And I think the futuristic cyberpunk Chicago is neat. The music gives the game a great vibe. The few characters you run into in the demo seem interesting. I'm in. Up next we have Ete or Et or Eat. Not actually sure how to pronounce this one. Anyway, the game is all about painting. What are you painting, you may ask? The world, of course. In this game, you wander around some super quaint city environments and add color to all of the objects within the world. Everything you color gains you experience, which you can use to increase your coloring capabilities, and adds things you colored into your catalog. Back at your apartment, you can paint any of the things from your catalog onto a canvas that you can then sell to progress a storyline, where you meet your neighbors and basically just exist in this little city. This is a super chill and casual game, and I absolutely loved it. Coloring in the world is such a satisfying and relaxing task, and I love the environment so much. I'm very much a city person, and they've created a super adorable and lively area that is fun to be in. None of the story or characters accomplish much to make anything about the main questline stand out, at least in the demo, but that's not really the point. I'm happy to just run around and color, and then check in with people every once in a while to hopefully unlock more areas. I'm definitely going to sink some time into this one. Next up, we have Between Horizons, a story-driven side-scroller investigation-type game that boasts a ton of branching paths based on evidence you collect in uncovering a mystery. So, who are you and what's the mystery? You play as a girl on a spaceship that I believe is on a mission to discover a new homeworld as Earth is nearing its final days. Your father is the head security officer and you work for him. As the demo begins, you're tasked with checking out a disruption in communications in the ship's maintenance room. You head down there to check things out and discover that the maintenance officer was attacked. After doing some puzzle solving and learning how to collect and analyze evidence, you discover your culprit and give chase. Things don't go well and your father dies, leaving you as the ship's security chief. Knowing that someone is on board the ship who is actively trying to sabotage the mission, the captain of the ship decides to keep the nature of your father's death a secret from the rest of the crew, and it's up to you to figure out what's going on, and thus ends the demo. In terms of gameplay, this was fine. It wasn't anything super innovative or brand new. That being said, branching paths are always a tricky selling point in a demo since there's usually not time to show how something will play out, so you don't really get to see all of that. But what you do get to see is some good writing, very nice character development in a short time, a nice visual style, and an interesting premise. This seems like an exciting story and a neat world to play around in, and I'm there for it. I will definitely be playing this one. Up next, we have Soulslinger, Envoy of Death, which takes us back into the world of roguelikes, which I enjoy so very much. This is a very cool one. You play as a man stuck in limbo who lost his wife and I think his own life in a car accident, and now he wanders a Wild West themed limbo working for death to kill limbo bad guys and gather souls to move on to the next plane of existence or something. Probably gonna have to play this again to figure out exactly why the character is going through this roguelike loop, but you can probably see this thing looks super polished and nice. It has a very crisp look and the voice acting is really nice. It's a very good production. In terms of gameplay, this is very much the Hades style of roguelite, where you enter little arenas, kill all the bad guys in it, then get a choice of exits to take, each which has a little preview of the type of room it'll lead to. Some will be little bonus perk rooms, many will be enemy rooms that grant a specific kind of currency or upgrade. Oh, and I should probably mention, though you can see this on screen, is that this is a first-person shooter. Not rare in the video game world by any means, but not used as common in the roguelike space, and I always think it works really well. This game is no exception. I was impressed with what I saw. The space you go to in between runs seems like it had some fun stuff to upgrade. I thought the story seemed fun. The visuals are phenomenal. The upgrades you were able to get in runs seemed fun, with a big shout out to the explosive rounds. The level of challenge seemed very good. And there are bosses. I can't really comment on how good they are since the game crashed right at the beginning of my first fight with one and I had to move on. But I was already sold on the game, so not a huge deal there. The King's Guard will have to wait for the final release. Hopefully there will be a little more optimization between now and the final release, so it runs a little more smoothly and maybe with a little less graphical pop-in. But I'm sure that is a thing that will get some attention. The game is not finished after all. I am a little worried that every game this developer has released has mixed reviews on Steam, but what I played of this one seemed fun, so here's hoping the final product turns out well. Next stop, we have Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express. I love a good mystery. I like being a detective in games, and I absolutely love the idea of old-timey long-distance passenger trains. I've played a couple games based on this story over the years, and I've always had a really good time going from car to car, getting to know all of the passengers and snooping through the different rooms. So I was already kind of sold on this one coming in, but then this seems like a really good one of these. The visuals are really nice, the voice acting is well done, and the way they handle investigation tasks is cool. As you discover clues and leads to follow up on, you create a mind map in the menu system. The map will keep track of key pieces of information and tie them together, and some of the points of interest in the mind map will ask you to deduce things, put clues together, or complete bigger tasks in certain rooms like finding all pieces of evidence, or things like that. So this is all solid stuff, but then at the end of the demo, there's a little bit of a plot twist that may or may not be in the original source material. Honestly, I can't remember. But you find a police detective who snuck onto the train to track down a murder suspect. As she talks to you, it flashes back to a playable sequence of her doing the police work to track the suspect to the train. The demo ends just after establishing that this will be a thing, so you don't really get to see how it all plays out, but that seems fun too. Even with all that stuff, I doubt this game will be too terribly long, but I'm looking forward to playing it and solving the mystery. Next up, taking a slight turn, we have RoboCop Rogue City. So I have to admit, RoboCop was released when I was very young and it's just kind of been around my whole life. I've seen it played on TV many times, but I've never actually sat down and watched it beginning to end. So I have a bit of familiarity and appreciation for it without really knowing the ins and outs of the story. But it's a robot cop in an 80s action movie. I've seen enough stuff where I kind of get the vibe. And that's really what this video game is. It's a total vibe. To me, it kind of feels like they're doing to RoboCop what Alien Isolation did to Alien. They're trying to bring the movie to life exactly as you remember it in the form of a video game. And for that, it totally works. RoboCop feels like a total tank in the game. You stomp around slowly, you smoke a bunch of comic book over-the-top 80s movie street punks, you work with a bunch of comic book movie trope cops. It's really dumb, but in a way that's super fun. Instead of a DTS gun view, you hit that normal button and it kind of brings up this little targeting mode that allows you to quickly spot and shoot at several enemies, which feels like a very RoboCop thing. You get to punch people out of windows, throw enemies at other enemies, just all kinds of over-the-top stuff. There even seems to be some stuff in there about RoboCop remembering his pre-robot past, which I'm assuming is a key part of the movie. The authenticity of this game is great, and that's really the reason I'm looking forward to playing it. Obviously, cops go in and shoot all the bad guys is a concept that isn't considered as cool as it was in the 80s, but this recreates the vibe from those times so well that it doesn't really feel like anything is done in poor taste. There's not much else to say. RoboCop is kind of a dumb concept, and this is kind of a dumb game. Purposely so, I'm not ragging on the devs or anything. But anyway, dumb things can't be a lot of fun. In fact, sometimes dumb things can be a special kind of fun that less dumb things can't be, and this is definitely that. Let's keep climbing the list with Jusant. Get it? Climbing? Oh, wait, I haven't talked about the game yet. You don't know the reference here. So, Jusant is a game where you climb. There, everyone's up to speed now. But really, it is that simple. The game is pretty much all about climbing. The entire game takes place on this massively steep mountain, and you just ascend from platform to platform. As you climb, you find little relics and clues about what seems like a past civilization, or I don't know, it might even be your current civilization. Whoever it is, they're not here now. But all of that stuff seems like optional lore. Definitely worth picking up, though. The environment is very well crafted, and it's legitimately interesting to look at all the stuff and experience the story through the set pieces and writing. But when you're not doing that, you're climbing. And there's a pretty cool system at play for that. Use the triggers and thumbsticks to grip and release various handholds on the cliff face. You also have a few extra anchor points that you can pound into the rock face if you're about to make a risky move, like making a jump across a gap or some other move that you can't really reach safely. You have to manage stamina, find the right routes, use your rope to swing or lower you down to areas with nothing to grab onto. Everything works intuitively, and most importantly, it's a ton of fun. Climbing feels dangerous and exciting. You have to be cautious, but not to the point where it slows the game down. And the penalty for falling isn't that bad either, making the whole thing feel fairly casual. It's a very nice game, and I'm super curious to learn more about the people that inhabited the mountain before you arrived, and what's waiting for you at the top, and also just what your character is doing. There's this whole thing with a little blobby creature in a backpack that they don't really explain in the demo. I'm assuming that's significant. We will see. Next up is While We Wait Here. So this is a bit of a wildcard pick since the demo is just kind of a teaser and doesn't show you that much of the game. But I'm very fascinated by what they showed off and really want to see what this is all about, so I'm really excited about it. The game starts with you working in a diner alongside your significant other. In between talking to and serving food and drinks to your customers, you have a conversation with your partner about what kind of house you're going to get when you leave the diner behind you, which seems like something that's happening soon. As the demo progresses, one of the customers gets increasingly rude. At one point you walk into your pantry and there's a man there in a suit and a mask. Your character seems to know who he is, though we, the players, have no idea. When you emerge from the pantry, another man in a suit seems to be cleaning up the murder of the rude customer, and nobody in the diner acknowledges it at all. They just continue as if everything is normal and they don't even know what's happening. Finally, right before the demo ends, things take a huge turn and you switch perspectives to your partner Nora, seeing the character you've been playing as, who seems to be somewhat disfigured. Nora talks about how she thinks it's finally time for her to leave. Your original character pleads with her to stay, saying that the place needs her. All of a sudden, like a random dream, the place is filled with customers and the murder scene is gone. Nora leaves the front door of the diner to find some kind of apocalyptic event, and that's where the demo ends. From the Steam description, it sounds like that kind of is the game. You serve and talk to customers in the diner while waiting for the world-ending event, but it doesn't really explain anything else. I am super curious. The tone of the game was awesome. The characters were done well, the diner was really well designed, and the twists and turns were legitimately cool and intriguing. So I have no idea how big this game will be or if it will go anywhere, but I am so interested and ready to experience it. I know so little about how it'll play out that there's a chance it won't be as good as I hope it is, but I'm more excited to find out than I am to play a lot of the other games on this list. I legitimately can't wait, and I do have high hopes that it will be good. We'll see. And now we've reached the top 3, starting off with Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, which is one I think a lot of people are leaving Next Fest excited about. As you can probably tell from the title, this is a Survivor game set in the world of Deep Rock Galactic. And let me tell you, as someone who plays every Survivor game I can get my hands on, this is one to look out for. It looks great, the weapons are decent, it controls nicely, all of the baseline things you want. But this one really shines by how they set up your progression. Each level has a kill counter that spawns various events when you reach certain thresholds. Events can be things like supply drops and swarms, which regular Deep Rock Galactic players will be familiar with, but eventually a threshold will spawn a boss. Once you kill the boss, your drop pod will appear, giving you a few seconds to get to it to descend to the next level. On top of that, since this is based on Deep Rock Galactic, it only makes sense that you can mine paths in the rock as you fight swarms of bugs. You do this to both create escape paths for yourself and gather materials that you can spend in the meta progression screen outside of a run. And of course that means you're able to upgrade your mining capabilities along with your weapons and general stats. But then going back to the meta progression stuff, it seems as though there are also general missions for you to accomplish. Almost more like achievements or trophies. Things that pop when you do a certain amount of things like collecting a certain amount of gold or killing a certain amount of enemies. And these missions unlock additional gameplay mechanisms and tools for you to use. What kinds of things will you get and how much will the game evolve and change as you go deeper and deeper? I'm not sure, we're going to have to find out in the final game. But I fully expect to sink some hours into this game. It's shaping up to be one of the best Survivor games I've ever played, right up there with 20 Minutes Till Dawn or Soulslinger Survivors. I can't wait, which is a statement I feel like I'm saying a lot. And now for number 2, the Last Exterminator. This game feels very much like an homage to Duke Nukem 3D that I had no idea I wanted. And by that, I really mean the gameplay and the level design, not so much the immature crap about the character of Duke Nukem that aged really poorly over the years. But I remember the levels of that game being so cool. Unlike Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, and the other first-person shooters at the time, you were running around in real-life places like movie theaters and malls and other contemporary recognizable things. But then secrets were hidden everywhere, and looking around and exploring was almost more fun than actually shooting the enemies. And that spirit seems very much alive in this game. The premise is an alien race of cockroaches has invaded Earth, and you, the Last Exterminator, are tasked with getting rid of them. The level in the demo takes place in a series of apartment buildings, some of which are crumbling and falling over from the alien attack. As you progress through the levels, you'll blow holes in walls that will create shortcuts back to earlier areas, and find sneaky ways to platform your way over walls and find hidden secrets. In terms of the shooting aspect of the game, it all works well. The guns are pretty standard, but they all feel nice. Aiming is really smooth and comfortable. The game moves very nice and looks like a throwback while also being significantly cleaner than a game from the time period it's throwing back to. Like I said, I had no idea a game like this would resonate with me so much. If you asked me if I wanted someone to make a game like Duke Nukem 3D, I'd probably be fairly indifferent about the idea. But actually playing it was a ton of fun, and I cannot wait to see more levels and where the game goes. Very good stuff here. But now we've reached the number 1 game that I'm excited about from Next Fest, and that is American Arcadia. I downloaded this game thinking it was going to be a 2D parkour platformer type of thing, and it kind of is, but it does a lot more that I wasn't expecting. The premise of this game is that you are attempting to escape a Truman Show type of world. Your life is part of a reality TV show, but you don't know it. Shortly after the demo begins, you're clued into the situation from someone trying to help you from the outside world, and so you run. But then in a complete plot twist, at least for me, the view zooms out and you take the perspective from your outside helper who's been watching you on the TV. From there, you enter a first-person mode where you wander around a TV studio looking for ways to help the protagonist without being discovered by anyone. After that, you zoom back into the TV and resume playing as the 2D side-scroller. But from then on, you can hit the tab button and interact with different electronic devices as the outside aid, turn lights on and off, operate platforms, open and close doors. And you do all of this while maintaining control of the main character, who is at this point being chased by the staff of the show. And that's it, that's what this game is. Excellent premise. Truman Show is classic, and doing that type of thing in a game is always going to sit well with me. And I think I'd like that if it was just a 2D side-scroller running game, but adding in the element of switching back and forth between the main character and the helper is a really cool touch. And there's so much room to play around with that. I have to imagine the outside helper will be found out at some point and will have to make an escape of her own from a first-person perspective. There's so many places this game can go, so many ways it can potentially sneak in some surprises and twists, perhaps a bit like Portal maybe. You never know. But I'm really excited to play more of this one and see where it all goes. But hey, that's the list, the 15 games I'm really excited about from Next Fest. What did all of you check out? Anything you're excited about? Whether I talked about it in this video or not, let me know what you're excited about from Next Fest in the comments below. And if you saw anything in this video that you're kind of interested in now, please consider wishlisting it on Steam. It helps the developers out a ton. And if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. It's free and it helps me out a ton. Nothing brings more people in to check out what's going on here like positive engagement from all of you. But then what's coming up next on the channel? I'm not entirely sure. Probably no demo videos for the rest of October. Things usually slow down quite a bit right after Next Fest since everyone releases their demos that week. But I think a lot of these games, as well as games from previous demo videos, are coming out in the coming weeks, so we may be checking out a lot of those. But until then, thanks for watching, and have a great day.